You won't believe what I'm about to tell you. Imagine walking into work on a normal day, grabbing your coffee, and then discovering your coworker has been locked away in a sweltering storage room by management. Not for minutes, not for hours, but long enough to break someone's spirit. And here's the craziest part. I was the one who had to step in and pull them out before things got much worse. That day didn't just change how I see my workplace. It completely flipped the power dynamic, leaving the bosses stunned and speechless. It all started on what felt like the most ordinary morning ever. I came in, clocked in, and got to my desk like usual. Everyone was rushing around, phones ringing, emails flying, the same grind, but something felt off. My coworker, the one who always cracked a joke first thing in the morning, wasn't at their desk. At first, I thought maybe they were late or took the day off. But then I noticed their bag sitting right there, tucked under the chair like they had arrived but vanished into thin air. You know when your gut just tells you something's wrong? Yeah, that was the moment it hit me. As the hours dragged on, the absence became stranger. No messages, no calls, no sign of them in the cafeteria. I even asked around casually, pretending I wasn't worried, but no one had seen them. Then one of the interns whispered something that stopped me cold. They said they saw our coworker being escorted by management down the hall toward the storage area, and then the door shut. At first, I laughed it off. Who does that? But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. The bosses had been furious at them recently for speaking up about the terrible working conditions. Suddenly, my unease turned into determination. Now, let me tell you about this so-called storage room. It wasn't just boxes and files stacked neatly. No, it was like a forgotten dungeon of the building. Broken fans, old equipment, no windows, no ventilation. In summer, that place turned into a furnace. The idea that anyone, let alone my coworker, could be forced to stay in there felt insane. I walked past casually, pretending to be checking the copier nearby, and that's when I heard it. A faint knock, then a muffled voice. My heart raced. They were in there. Management had actually locked them away like it was some kind of punishment chamber. Here's where I had to make a choice. Do I stay quiet, keep my head down, and let the bosses keep their twisted power games going? Or do I step up, knowing full well I could lose my job, or worse, if I got caught? My instincts screamed at me, don't get involved. But then I pictured my coworker sitting in that heat, sweating, gasping for air, maybe even passing out. That image burned into my mind, and I knew I couldn't walk away. So I made the decision that would change everything. I was going to break them out no matter the risk. I waited until the hallway cleared, heart pounding so loud I swore it could be heard. I tried the doorknob, locked, of course. I whispered through the crack, and they whispered back, voice shaky, weak, desperate. Please, get me out. That was all I needed to hear. I sprinted to the supply cabinet, grabbed a spare keyring I'd seen supervisors use before, and came back. My hands were shaking so bad it took me 3 tries to fit the right key, but finally, the lock clicked. I swung the door open and the sight hit me like a punch. My coworker was pale, drenched in sweat, slumped against a stack of boxes. They looked like they'd been trapped for hours. Without thinking, I pulled them out and practically dragged them into the cooler air of the hallway. For a second, it was silent. Just the two of us catching our breath. Then footsteps echoed. A manager turned the corner, froze, and their face went pale. They knew they'd been caught. They stammered something about discipline and protocol, but no words could justify what had just happened. People started gathering. Other employees saw what was happening and rushed over. Whispers turned into outrage. The secret wasn't a secret anymore. And the bosses? They looked stunned, almost paralyzed, as if they never thought someone would actually open that door. That was the moment the entire office woke up. People who usually stayed quiet started shouting, "How could you do this? This is abuse. We're calling HR. No, we're calling the authorities." The bosses tried to calm everyone down, waving their hands, saying it was all a misunderstanding, but no one was buying it. My coworker, still shaky, managed to speak up. Their voice was hoarse but strong. They locked me in there because I spoke out. And if it wasn't for them, they pointed at me, I might not have made it out. The room erupted. The tide had turned. By now, the higher-ups had arrived, summoned by the chaos. They saw the crowd, the outrage, the truth written all over our faces. For once, the bosses had no script, no polished excuse. They just stood there, stunned, as their control unraveled in front of everyone. The coworker was taken to the nurse's office, water in hand, while employees documented everything. Photos of the storage room, testimonies, even timestamps. It wasn't just a scandal anymore, it was evidence. And the bosses, their silence was the loudest confession of all. In the end, that day changed more than just one life. It changed the entire culture of our workplace. The story spread beyond the office, reaching HR, corporate, and eventually, people who had power to make real decisions. My coworker recovered stronger than ever, and management, let's just say their days of unchecked power came to an abrupt stop. But here's the real lesson. Sometimes doing the right thing feels terrifying. Sometimes it means risking your own comfort, your own safety. But when you step up, you don't just rescue one person. You light a spark that can burn down the walls of silence and fear. That day, I didn't just rescue my coworker, I rescued the courage inside all of us to say, enough is enough. You'd think after being exposed, management would own up, apologize, and try to make things right. But no, the opposite happened. Corporate tried damage control. They sent out emails loaded with buzzwords, misunderstanding, policy review, commitment to safety. But nobody bought it. Employees weren't fooled anymore. The trust was broken. And trust, once shattered, doesn't glue back. Together with pretty words. Behind closed doors, I could feel the tension. Whispers of retaliation. Rumors that they were looking for someone to blame. And my name was at the top of that list. Saving my coworker had sparked a fire. But now I was standing right in the middle of the flames. The next weeks felt like a silent war. The bosses avoided me, but their eyes followed my every move. Suddenly, small mistakes at work were magnified. Every report I turned in was scrutinized. Every break I took was timed. They wanted me to slip, to give them a reason to strike back. But here's the thing, I wasn't alone anymore. My coworkers had seen the truth. And every time management tried to corner me, someone would step up and back me. It was like we'd built a shield of solidarity. And that shield was stronger than their intimidation. Eventually, the outside investigation began. HR sent investigators not just to interview management, but to talk directly with employees. One by one, people shared their stories. Not just about the storage room incident, but years of mistreatment, bullying, and abuse of power. The picture that formed was ugly, undeniable. My coworker gave their testimony, still shaking as they described the heat, the fear, the helplessness. And I told my part, how I found them, how I made the choice to unlock that door. By the end of the week, investigators had more than enough. It wasn't a matter of if consequences would come, it was when. Then came the day everything collapsed. A company-wide meeting was called, and tension hung in the air like a storm about to break. The bosses walked in, stiff and pale, knowing their empire was about to crumble. The announcement hit. Suspensions, firings, leadership shakeups. The ones responsible for locking my coworker away were escorted out, boxes of belongings in hand, faces red with humiliation. For once, accountability wasn't just a word. It was real. And as they left, the entire office let out a breath we didn't realize we'd been holding for years. After the storm, something amazing happened. The office transformed. Policies changed, but more importantly, attitudes changed. People spoke up without fear. Meetings became conversations instead of threats. And my coworker, they came back stronger, treated with the respect they deserved. As for me, I learned something I'll never forget. Courage isn't about being fearless. It's about being terrified and still stepping forward anyway. That single decision to turn the key and open that door didn't just rescue one person. It started a movement. And sometimes, that's all it takes. One act of courage to change everything.